All right. So the time is now 7:03. And from Capital Budget, we've got Brian Host, Michael Dick, and Susan Franklin, which is a quorum on our 5-member board. And that's all that's joining us tonight. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Thanks for having me. I suppose if Michelle wants to put it on the screen, she can, but I actually have a hard copy in front of me. I'm requesting, we received a federal grant for police radios. And if you look at the 10-year capital plan, there's, police portable radios are located on there, and we try to buy them piecemeal. And we're able to successfully receive a grant for $48,827 from the feds. They just announced this back in early September because their fiscal year runs October to October.
Okay.
So there is a 25% local match, and I'm requesting the capital budget support a warrant item for $12,764, and that's a little bit of an increase over the original request because there was a $700 and change increase due to production and inflation costs. So they didn't honor the quote that we received in, I think it was April or May.
Not a problem. It's not like they added a zero or anything. So
yeah, exactly. And the second item is we have to replace our interview room camera system, and that's a cost of $15,050. The system that we currently use, it has failed. What happens is we get about 15 minutes of video, then it stops and it restarts. So we have to piece the video together using like Final Cut, and that's problematic for because these things are evidentiary and they're used in court, and they don't like us touching these things at all. So we've been able to work around it for the most part now, but it is to the point where it has to be replaced. And this is a requirement from the district attorney's office, and an expectation, quite frankly, from juries in the court that they can see the actual interview of victims and suspects. That said, the state just announced a fiscal year 22 grant. It's called Violence Against Women. The Violence Against Women Act Services Training Officers Prosecutors Formula Grant. It's a mouthful, but there is money available for different things. And one of the things we use these cameras for, this interview room camera, is to record victims of domestic violence to get their side of the story out there. So I think I can successfully write a grant where we form a nexus between that grant and the system that we use. The problem is, I'm going to apply for this grant either way, but the grant awards will not be announced. They won't be awarded till mid to late December. So there's an overlap. We have to do something. I'm confident we could probably get this grant because this is a new grant, and I've been in contact with Senator O'Connor's office about it. This is something he'd support. He actually sent me the information on this grant. So we may, if capital budget was supportive of this request for funds, they may very well be returned, not used, if we get this grant in December.
okay. Is that it, Bill?
That's it. Sorry.
Okay.
Left your hand.
So, handful of questions, and I encourage my colleagues to jump in. It doesn't look like any of us is on mute, so this is just an open conversation. But just starting with the cameras. Sorry, not the cameras. The radios. These are radios. These are the portable radios that you wear on your person. Is that
correct?
Or are these radios that go in the cars?
No, these are portable radios that each officer carries with them. This is assigned to them, and they carry them. They last about anywhere from between 8 and 10 years.
Right. And this is for 6 of them. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So this is by no means a full fleet upgrade or replacement. This is just chipping away at the turnover in our pool of portable radios. Is that the right way to think about it?
Correct. We received 3 from the state 2 years ago. We used to just put in a request, for everything, and it'd be, over $100,000. So I'm trying to, break the cycle of doing that and trying to do it piecemeal and chasing these smaller grants. We have real success with some of these smaller grants.
Okay.
They're much likely to part with $30,000 than $200,000. So
Yep.
we've actually been really successful. But
Okay.
again, this is in the 10-year plan to replace. We have to leave it there as a placeholder because if these grants dry up, we don't get them.
Right.
They do need to be replaced.
Okay. You just completely answered my question. Kicking around in the back of my head with 10 years of capital requests. I feel like we hear radio requests every couple of years.
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years. And I was just trying to get my head around, why we're hearing sort of this constant stream of requests for radios. And you I think completely clarified it. We're not doing the whole fleet in one shot. We're doing them in cycle as we can.
Correct. And also, the infrastructure that these portable and mobile radios talk to, there's a whole back end to this. They're called repeaters and transmitter sites. We successfully worked with the region because you have much more success getting these grants regionally. We worked through the regional dispatch center. We just received $250,000 to replace the back end of our entire system. So that is in progress right now. So it's huge to save that kind of money. And there's a 20-year lifespan on that stuff.
No, that really is. I mean, anytime we can pick up $250,000 worth of capital equipment in a grant as opposed to straight out of the fund, it just makes room for other things. So that's extraordinarily helpful and job well done.
And the last time, just by way of background, the last time we replaced the back end of this, the backbone of the system was 2001.
Yeah.
So it was at end of life, no longer supported by Motorola.
Okay. And my last question is, how many radios do we actually have sort of in our pool of radios, and how many do we need? I mean, does this keep us fresh, or are we still like behind the game, or where does this, how many do we have and where does this put us?
Every officer every sworn officer is issued a radio. They take that home, it's their radio.
Yeah.
So we have 25, there's usually about 30 radios because there's always something broken or someone loses one, and we find it. So usually it's about 28, but that fluctuates.
Yep. And where are we in terms of the upgrade on that total fleet of 28, or where would this 6 put us?
We've replaced this 6 along with the 3 that we received. That's 9, and we had 2 others that we got through Shrek. So we're halfway there, just about halfway there.
Okay. And when's the last time we bought a group of these?
The last time we replaced all of these radios was, I'm guessing here, I want to say it was 2011, and that was on a grant too, a Homeland Security grant. They paid for the whole thing. So the town really hasn't purchased radios probably since 2004.
Okay. So 2011 is the last time we did portable radios?
I'm sorry?
So you think it was roughly around 2011 was the last time we upgraded the portable radios?
Yeah, everybody received a new radio through.
Okay, and we haven't done any portable radios since then.
Here and there, we do one if someone breaks one, or if it's in a struggle or something like that, and a defendant has to pay to replace it.
But in terms of a capital request, we haven't seen them.
No portable radios.
Okay, so it must have been vehicle and the station radio that I'm thinking of. Perhaps it was fire. Okay.
Correct. No, it's the station radio. It was on this year's capital plan, and it was funded. And every time we buy a cruiser, usually like every 6 years, we replace a mobile radio.
Right.
Sometimes we skip a year.
Okay.
I mean, the things are really, they're about $7,000 or $8,000 a piece now, which is horrifying. But if you think about it, you're paying $1,200 or $1,300 for an iPhone or
right.
One of the phones, and those last a couple of years. So we generally get about 8 to 10 years out of them.
Susan, Michael, thoughts, questions?
Well, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right line item here on the 10-year plan. So this is under portable radios issued to
Correct.
police officers. There's 30 in parentheses. That's probably the number.
Yes,
And then you have a $150,000 line item in 2024. So that would be for a full replacement of all 30.
correct. So that'll be reduced by $50,000. And I think we can push that off where, we'll go through the radios and figure out, we'll take the worst ones out of service and get rid of them. And so we'll be able to push that entire request off for 1 year to reevaluate, see if we can get more grants.
That's
I'd
fine.
like to ask a question about the 10-year plan and asking if we can update it and actually come up with a plan to replace X number of radios in so many years, so that, like with, say, those Chromebooks, we have new Chromebooks coming in every 3 years. If we've got, I don't know, did you say 8 to 10 years on these portables?
Correct.
So, if we've already got 8 out of your 28, and we do another 8, you're saying in 2 years, I would like to see the 10-year plan reflect those next batch of 8 in the proper year and then the years following, just so we don't lose track.
Yeah, I understand, but it's so nothing in stone with these grants. So a lot of these things are,
No, I appreciate the fact that it's, grants are an iffy thing, but I think for our planning, we ought to know that, every other year, we're going to replace X number of radios, whether we get a grant or not. It just helps us understand what the demands are on the cash that we have. It just helps for our planning.
I understand that. One of the problems is, one of the challenges is that we purchased in 2011, we purchased, I forget how many, say it was 25 radios. We purchased, received through a grant 25 radios at once, and they all have a life, they're all expired, their end of life, the end of support all terminates at once. So I'm trying to break up that cycle. So some of these, we move back in the fleet, similar to cars, we'll move back to, the special offices, or we'll give one to the harbor master. We supply them to different, town departments and emergency management. They're moved back in the fleet, so to speak.
So these are radios that work, but you're giving them to other users who may not have the same demand on the capability of the radio in their line of work.
Yeah, they're not using them every day, maybe 16 hours a day.
Right.
Maybe during storms, or, just during the, when the harbor master's on duty or whatever.
Right, but still, I don't see why we can't map out, replacement cycles. I really don't. I don't see why we need to have 30 plugged in there in this 10-year plan. It's misleading.
Well, and I agree. I don't know if it's misleading. It's, the hand I was dealt. I'm in the process of breaking that up. But in the meantime, I have to leave that number in place. For now, actually, that can be changed probably this year, because we've broken that cycle of ordering 30.
Yeah, we have, by this allocation, we're breaking the cycle.
Mhm.
And if you break the cycle, then we should go through and change all those formulas that were dependent on a plan that doesn't exist anymore, a replacement plan that doesn't exist anymore.
And also pricing that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So all of this to say is, I think it's a useful, very useful exercise to map out our plans for replacing these radios, like any other capital spend, whether it's DPW or police or whatever. we are faced with major projects, and anything we can do to control our operational budget and have our operational budget thoughtfully planned and followed is going to help us a lot. We're way past the days when it was loosey-goosey.
So, Bill, if you could just, to the best of your crystal ball, which no one's, but by definition is not accurate, right? But it's just whatever you best believe the future holds. If we could just update the cap plan for that, that would be great. And I think, one thing about forecasts, I think people get caught up in them sometimes as being not doable. I think it's more important to go into it with a recognition that the future will be different than what we expect. So we're really just trying to get our best view of it on paper so that we can plan accordingly.
No, I agree. And again, I prepared a memo at 11 o'clock this afternoon to give you the best numbers. And things change that rapidly,
Yeah, totally understood.
$700 in a week.
Totally understood. Just get us close for now. And when the time comes to actually replace the next group, I know the number will be different. We all know the number will be different.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, great work on these grants, by the way. I can't emphasize that enough. This is the key to actually making the capital budgeting process work. And you're doing really just a thoughtful and very calculated job of targeting these grants, landing these grants, and relieving a lot of pressure on the capital budget. Sometimes the path of least resistance would just be for you to come and ask us for the money for the radios. I get that. But then, we don't have the money for cars and other things that we need to buy. So thank you so much for doing the work and chasing these grants. It's really important.
I have a great team behind me, and a lot of credit goes to them. That's for sure. But we seek out every penny. It's
I'm hearing that loud and clear. Do we have any other questions on the radios?
Nope.
Susan, do you guys feel like we're in a position to vote the radios?
Mhm.
Michael and Susan,
Yes.
somebody like to make a motion?
I move that Capital Budget Committee recommends the purchase of, was that 6 portable police radios?
I think it would be, to provide funding for the matching funding to support the federal grant of $12,764, the 25% match on a federal grant.
Okay, and that's for 6 radios?
Correct, 6 radios.
Okay.
Let me actually, Michael, just before you make the motion, can I just ask you a question, Bill? Do we just need to provide the match, or do we have to fund the whole thing and then you have to go get a refund of the grant portion?
No, it's just the match.
Okay, we just have to appropriate the match. I asked because some of these programs, you actually have to appropriate the whole amount and then go get the money back. So
No, they're funding an account for us.
okay, perfect. So we're good, Michael.
Okay. So let me think about this. Motion to replace 6 portable police radios funded at 25% of the total by the town. The remaining 75% of the funding is guaranteed. Is that by the Commonwealth?
Federal Homeland Security.
Federal.
By Federal Homeland Security. Okay. So motion to replace 6 portable police radios, funded at 20% of the total cost. The remaining 75% of the funding is guaranteed by Federal Homeland Security. Does that sound right?
It works functionally. Everybody okay?
Yep. Did you say 25%, Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
I can send, I just typed it out. Do you want me to send it to you?
No, that's all right. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a second?
Second,
All right, all in favor? Roll call vote. Michael Dick,
Mike Dick, aye.
Susan Franklin,
Susan Franklin, I.
Brian Host, aye. All right, so we're done on that. Cameras.
Brian, may I just interrupt? I'm sorry. So all I had on this tonight's agenda to vote on
Yep,
was the portable radios.
okay.
I didn't have anything specifically to vote on the interview room cameras. So if we could just hold that vote until next Thursday to make sure it's valid, that would probably be best.
It's a good technical point, Michelle. Thank you for keeping us out of trouble. You're correct. Do we have any, as long as we're on the topic, do we have any questions about this request?
No.
Doesn't make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Bill, we're just as a technical matter, we're gonna have to vote it next week when it's actually on the agenda.
It'll alleviate the call from the Attorney General's office to me, so I'm on board with that.
All right. I think that's it for police for the evening. Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your help.
Have a good
Sure.
night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next up is the Osgood school entry.
Yes, thank you very much. Michelle, if you could please give me the ability to share screen, I will do so.
Should be all set.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone. This is a matter that we wanted to bring to your attention regarding safety. So it's always the most important thing we do is make sure our schools are safe. And this comes directly from a report done. As you know, we have a school facilities team that is part of our charter that asked or I should say, commissioned a architectural firm called AI3 to do a report of all of our facilities, each of the 4 schools or 3 school buildings. And they did so. And part of that approach was a comprehensive security investigation of all the schools by a company named Ross and Barzini. And they pointed out several things that we were doing very well in terms of safety and security. And then they also pointed out some things that we needed to improve. And a lot of it was adding to what we currently have. One of the areas that really stuck out in the report was their feelings about our vestibule at the Osgood School, which is again our PK-2 school. So the request today is the school does not, and the school being Osgood, does not have a vestibule layout that supports visitor check-in. Excuse me, trying to move before the visitor enters the school. And their recommendation was to recommend the renovation of the lobby and vestibule to provide a controlled entry point similar to Deer Hill and the high school, actually at all of our schools, which I'll show you in a moment. And the addition was of approximately 26-foot length and 8-foot height, storefront with 2 sets of double doors, glass to be school guard glass or equal. And as I looked up what school guard glass is, it's the glass that is very hard to penetrate. It's all designed to really reduce the ability and the speed of someone getting through the glass, where I guess the strongest glass was tested at about 40 seconds on the market. And school guard glass, when they tested it, took 10 to 12 minutes to get through. So it's all buying time for emergency response, which is really important. One of the things that Ross and Barzini stressed with us, and I should mention, not only did they give a comprehensive report to the school facilities team, but they gave a comprehensive report to our whole emergency team. So this summer, I gathered the Chief Quigley, Chief Dockery, members from their organizations, members of Nick was there from facilities, emergency management, and we listened to the representative from Ross and Barazini talk about the needs of the schools, and he really stressed the importance of making sure we keep folks out who shouldn't be in, and how really that is the most important thing we can do. And we've really solidified that approach and done a lot to make sure we're keeping our doors from being propped and making sure that we have all the security measures in place. And this is one that falls along that line. So it includes door hardware for existing doors and the integration of the existing airphone system and an ADA compliant automatic entry system, which we don't have currently. And the amount we're requesting is $200,000. And this is the actual draft of the security item, and it's what we quoted from, right from Ross and Barazini. And you can see there's a range where they looked at 184,000 to 221,000 and change being the high range. So I wanted to just show you the vestibules and what we're talking about. So this is our high school vestibule, and you can see this is the idea is that someone can enter the building and still be spoken to by the staff in the office. They can be checked out, make sure that they have the ability to look at their body language, and they can interact with them before they're actually in the building. And you can see the lobby guard technology there, just in this area, where every visitor has to put a license in, and that if it pops up as someone who shouldn't be entering the building, that goes right to the police, and then it also goes to some of the important personnel in our district as an alert, and then we go there and check out what's going on. But the important factor here is that before we let someone in the building, we get to really understand their purpose and really get a chance to interact with them. This is the middle school. You can see we did, and we're very thankful for for Capital for helping with this. We did add double doors to keep this secure and safe, and cameras, and this is a very secure entryway. And you see the similar features. We have the lobby guard here, and we have a window where they can interact before they're in the main building with the students. This is Deer Hill, same idea. It's the vestibule is set so that they come in, they go to the lobby guard, and they can interact with them. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like when they're interacting, this is Deer Hill, where they have the lobby guard. You can see the school guard glass there, and they're really able to make sure they understand the purpose of every visitor coming into the building. This is Osgood. So you can see the marked difference that the doors coming in here, this door is secured, obviously, as they come in and they look at the lobby guard. We can see them through the camera, but we really can't get a good sense of what's happening with this person, where this person is here. It also doesn't give you the opportunity to parents and other folks can come in and drop things off for students here. They don't have to go into the building. We're trying to keep people safe and outside of the building, if at all possible. That's the only thing way they could do that here is they'd have to drop off the item, and then basically the administrative assistant or secretary, whoever's there, would have to wait till they're gone to be safe, and then go into the lobby and get the material. So it's not a safe interaction space. And that's Ross and Barazuni picked that out right away. And it could create a vulnerable situation if someone was able to get in the building and we hadn't fully vetted their reason, because we just didn't see something because we couldn't really see them clearly as we were checking them in. And this is what it looks like. You can see the lobby is right off here to the area there between the two doors is over here to the left of the screen. And that's where the administrative assistant sits. So And this is just a sketch that was provided to us by Ross and Barazini to give us a sense where the double doors would go and the door hardware. You know, it clearly is a bigger project than the project we did at the middle school, because we had the existing vestibule. We just needed to put in not just, we needed to put in a set of double doors. This is a bigger construction project, and we realized that it would, you know, would necessitate an engineer and you know, a report to determine what we needed to do and bids and all of that. But because of the paramount safety need, we wanted to bring it to the attention of the Capitol. We do, as Chief Quigley had mentioned, we haven't applied for these grants yet, but these are coming and they'll be available. Some of you may have seen the very large, unprecedented $300 million Stop Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that was signed into law on the 25th. As part of that, there's a Stop Violence Act grants that provide money for schools, and you can see it. It's to institute safety measures in and around schools, support school violence prevention efforts, and provide training to school personnel and students. And it codifies the schoolsafety.gov clearinghouse, which provides evidence-based resources to improve school safety. So that's money that we expect will be something we can apply for. And then I've been in contact with Representative Machino. I actually sat down with her, with the Hull and Hingham superintendents, and we all talked about school safety is absolutely being paramount, you know, obviously with recent events, but events that keep on happening in the country. And we were informed that the Office of Public Safety and Security will be funding school efforts in the closeout of the supplementary budget that is due to be released in the next couple of months. And I actually received an email today from, I believe, Representative Machino's assistant, stating that they'd be watching for legislation in that area, and they make sure that they brought it to our attention when those funds are made available. So I'll stop sharing my screen, but I just wanted to at least go through that so everybody had a sense of what we were talking about with this request. So thank you for your consideration of this.
Okay. Handful of questions, and I'll just lead it off. I saw that, you know, the sketch there where the extra row of windows would go. Sorry, doors. Pardon me. You know, further inside the lobby. And having visited there, you know, it struck me that there were sort of all sorts of systems in that, you know, immediately inside inside that second set of doors that we'd have to possibly, you know, either think about or relocate it. I mean, I don't know what they were, but, you know, you come through the doors and on the right-hand side, there's just all sorts of panels that look like circuit breakers, fire alarm systems. I'm not sure what. I guess my question is this the design that, you know, we're landing on, or is this just a starting point in terms of one way that you could potentially deal with this? And are there other designs that people are thinking about?
We do not have, I mean, we don't have a design. We just have their preliminary sketch that they suggested.
So this is one way we could do it.
It is one way we can do it. It was brought up as a paramount need. And again, it's something that our emergency team agreed on as well, that this, you know, this is a vulnerability that we need to think about attending to in some way. Okay.
And the second question I had is, you know, as you go from sort of an identified need and which we have, right, to actually executing a project. I mean, there's actually a lot of work that needs to get done. When would you actually think you could get construction done? I mean, the middle school, I think we did over a Christmas break, if I'm not mistaken, but that was a much simpler project. This strikes me as something that would be really, well, probably not a Christmas vacation project and highly disruptive if we were doing it when school is in session.
Yeah, it may be a summer project, my thinking, but I also know that the sooner we can activate, you know, funding, the sooner we can get this this going. And because it's a safety measure that has always been on my mind, but it, the
Yep.
fact that it was pointed out specifically by this security firm and reaffirmed by our team, it seemed very important to bring it to the Capitol's attention as soon as we could for your thoughts on funding. I know there's a process, and there'd have to be designs and bids, and obviously we don't have that yet. And so I come to you with more of a need and a concern than we don't even have funding to really do any of those engineering reports or to hire an engineer to actually design it right now. That would be something that we need as well.
I have more questions, but I don't want to monopolize this. Mike, Susan?
Well, it does seem a little bit like we're putting the final project before the steps to get to the final project. But you're saying you don't have funds to pursue that activity. Maybe
Pursue
that's
the
something
engine-
we should be talking about, getting those funds to get that activity started.
Yeah, I'd defer to Susan on that, but Susan, what are your thoughts on the engineering study that might need to be done on it?
Yeah, we would definitely need the funding to do, just engineering, to have someone come in and look at it, and come up with what's the best design. But again, it's also on the high priority list for safety. So, we have to do it in steps. We can't have it engineered, an architect come out and look at it until we actually have the money to fund that project. And we don't have the funds to even start the ball rolling.
One of the things that was apparent from the AI3 report is that Osgood's a good building. It's a beautiful school. It's going to be with us for a long time in Cohasset, and so this is a needed feature in that building to really protect our youngest and most vulnerable students in a beautiful building that's going to be a staple of Cohasset for a long time.
Agreed. Nick, what are your thoughts?
So I fully agree. This is definitely something that needs to be done. There is a lot of legwork that's going to go along with this.
Yep.
There might be different ways to do it that aren't as invasive. Me just looking at a facility standpoint and trying to get more done with funding is and obviously this is just my thoughts. It would need to be vetted by somebody who can tell me what we can and can't do regarding going through walls and such. But the front doors of Osgood are kind of on my short list of replacing anyway, because they're starting to show their age, and they're not aluminum, they're steel. So they are starting to rot out from years of salt being up against them. So one thought was to extend the existing vestibule to the left so it connects to the main office, so we can create that bank teller window into the main office, which would be a much smaller project in the grand scheme, also allowing us to use some of these funds to replace the exterior storefront that's there. That's just one of my thoughts, just looking at the big picture and some other things that are going to be needs in the future. And like you did mention, Brian, that there are a lot of electronics, fire panels in past that second set of doors, and
Right.
that's a can of worms I just think might turn into something. But I definitely think this is doable many different ways. And we would just need to get an architect and engineer out there.
Okay. So it sounds like there are a couple different alternatives, and it sounds like everybody's of the view that we need a team of experts to come in and look at those different alternatives and figure it out. I mean, we don't want to create a project within a project in terms of the study, right? Because I'm sure there's somebody out there that would love to charge us for the study.
Brian, I disagree with you on that.
Sorry?
I disagree with you on that.
On what?
on, I think you said no one really wants a study within a study, and I disagree with you on that.
Okay, maybe let me choose a different set of words. We don't want a study that, that turns into a 6-digit project.
We're already starting with a 6-digit project without a really clear understanding of what it is that we're designing or constructing. And it seems to me the prudent course would be to fund a study now at special town meeting so that the study can commence right away. And that the school facilities committee comes back at the annual town meeting with a good plan, an approved plan that could be executed in the summer break. I don't think anyone disagrees with the necessity and the urgency, but we have seen so many projects, including one that's before us now over at the water department, that started at one level and suddenly doubled. Not saying that this will, but without having our plans in place, the likelihood of this $200,000 rising, I think, is good right now. It's a good chance that'll happen without having any real plans. What we're doing is we're just taking our best estimate. And I don't feel that's strong enough to spend $200,000 right now. And then my other question is, where is this money coming from in special town meeting? Is there an allocation from the town manager to support this? Or is this coming out of a stabilization fund, which we've drawn down to the $1 million level, which we normally don't go below? And then Susan, you alluded to some of these items that I just laid out, but just wondering what your thoughts are at this point too.
Well, definitely sensitive to the dollar, sensitivity in terms of it rising, but I think that Nick made some good points about, if we're going to go in there and modify this building, then maybe we should be addressing some of the other things that ought to be addressed in that area at the same time. And that's why I think doing a study is a really good idea.
Yeah, I
Funding
agree.
a study and knock down everything all at once. Now we're going to be revisiting this again.
Yep.
In short term.
So my question would be to the school facilities committee and to Nick. Can you set out a list of requirements to a request for proposal or quote or whatever on an assessment? Well, I guess we have the assessment, but let's include an assessment just to make sure that your consultant is on the right path, and an estimate with a certain amount of design to help us understand what are we going to do, what are we going to actually build, and what the actual final cost will be without overrun. That's my advice.
Mike, can I just make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Since we're looking for an engineering study, AI3 had a very intimate study of all of the buildings, and we don't have to go out to bid on engineering services, which this would be. Would it be more feasible for us to work with AI3, who's already involved, have Nick work with them to actually come up with a plan that we can present to Capital?
I would say yes. However, and I'm going to point to the Water Commission, not to the schools. But the Water Commission trusted one consultant who gave a very low bid, which was ultimately doubled, not only by the same consultant, but a competing consultant. So I just would hope and would make sure that we're doing due diligence with AI3 to really be confident that, yes, they're giving us the right answers, accurate estimates, and not coming back in 6 months' time to say, so sorry, we didn't do it right.
This
Right.
estimate comes from AI3.
I'm sorry.
The estimate I gave you does come from AI3.
But there's no detail. It's just a round number.
Correct. No, correct. I
Yeah.
just wanted to.
So it's hard to agree to something which is just a rough estimate.
I understand that.
Yeah. So I would hope that we can get a good number on an engineering guidance. Here's what you should do. These are the, I don't know, 25% design. I'm in over my head, but something that tells us that someone has really thought about the conditions there at the school and have come up with a solution that will fit the school and be done right the first time within your time frame. And I'm going to take your statement that it may have to be done in the 2023 summer break. If you're, I'm sure you're not comfortable with that, but if that's the reality of it,
Yeah.
then let's aim for that, to have the money in place so that work can begin, as soon as schools close.
And I don't disagree with you at all. But I also have to state, I know little to nothing about the amount of time it takes to construct something like that.
Yeah.
Just from a layman's perspective, I would think it would take longer than a week, but you're
Sure.
also correct about the importance of it, to us, to make sure we're as safe as we can be.
Right.
So that does make us want to do it as quickly as we can, but I get all your points.
Yeah. I have another question on the intrusion proofness. How intrusion proof are the other exterior walls, doors, windows,
Mhm.
other points of entry at each of the other school buildings? Have we now hardened all of our schools and have all the locking doors, locking windows, access processes in place so that really this vestibule is the final piece? Or are there more issues are there more needs that need to be addressed on hardening schools?
There are more issues that need to be addressed. A lot of them are upgrading and expanding systems. And our alarm systems, for instance, are some of our technology systems in terms of cameras and such. But we do have good systems in place. It's just expanding that. There are some definite needs there. In terms of intruder proofing the doors and windows, Nick would know a little more about that than I would. But from what I understand, we did some work recently to kind of tighten that up.
Yeah, what we have at the schools, it's not the school guard glass, but there is a ballistic laminate that is on the inside of all windows on ground level, and that's to slow down intrusion.
That's right.
One of the recommendations from the firm, which we probably will do going forward, is if we ever have the need to replace glass, that we will replace it with school guard at that time,
Right.
whether it's breakage or what have you. The school guard glass is much more economical than real, like bulletproof glass. It's actually pretty cost effective from what I've seen. So that's the plan going forward for now.
Yes.
So are we falling out on this, that we ultimately want to appropriate money for a study at special town meeting and then the main project at annual? Is that where everyone is?
I think it makes sense from a timeline perspective. If the project wouldn't be happening till the summer anyway, it makes sense to get the funding to get a very good design in place, and then hopefully at that point they can give us a good real world estimate that we can
Right.
ask for at annual town meeting.
All of which you need to pursue a grant anyway, I would think, in order to be really competitive on grant funding. I think they'd want to see a plan and a price. and not just a concept. But Michelle, you were about to say something?
I was just gonna say, being unsure of how much it would cost to actually get a study completed, do we think a week's time is enough to be able to contact vendors to see what this type of study will cost to bring it before capital as soon as next week?
Well, do we really need to shove it into a week?
Not a week, but 2 weeks, because the warrant's
Yeah.
gonna close and this opportunity is gonna pass until annual.
Right, but the warrant can still carry the amount for the study. If it's done in the next, I would say more than 2 weeks, but you know the calendar in terms of when the warrant will close. And whether or not you have recommendation to print in the warrant may not be there, but certainly would be there on the floor of town meeting.
Can I just clarify what study is meant? Is it a design for the area? Because I think AI3 was vetted, and there were competing architectural firms that were looked at by the school facilities team. So they did a really comprehensive 213-page facility study. So, and part of that was about 35-page security study that went with that. So I wouldn't think that we need to go do that again. I mean, my thought is we're looking at an engineering study for this particular space. I just want to make sure we're not that's what we're talking about. And if we're not, I just want to understand it.
Yeah,
That's
I
okay.
fully agree with what
Yep.
Pat said. I think we're using the word assessment incorrectly, where we know the need. We need to
Right.
design the solution at this
I
point.
agree. We need an
I
engineering.
think everyone's on the same page with
Okay,
that.
that's good. I thought so. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure. Thank you very much.
The only pause I have is it an architect? Is it an engineer? Is it both? I mean, I don't have any experience sort of
I don't know.
in construction projects or
It's
renovation
really a
projects. so-
design firm that you'd need to bring in.
Yeah.
So it's an architectural engineer is really what you need.
It's both,
It's
right?
both.
And someone that can look at the plumbing at the same time and decide
Yeah.
what needs moved.
Yeah, and then this is just to come up with the assessment, and then
Right.
once that's done, we go before annual with the actual price tags, and we can come with bids in hand at that point, because we
Right.
can bid out the project based on their specifications.
Okay.
Makes sense.
What we really need to understand is what will it cost to hire this firm to do this work? The plan, review of a couple different alternatives, make a recommendation on the best one. Okay, how do we get a number around that?
I think we reach out to 3 firms specifically. We
Okay.
have a bunch in our database from working with the Building Facilities Committee. I think we can
Yeah.
reach out to them respectively and get some pricing.
And certainly AI3 sounds like it would probably be one of them.
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, it's a logical place to start. Okay, and Michelle, when's the drop dead to actually put something in the warrant? When does it actually go to print?
I was told the last date that we had was, the last date the select board meet to discuss the warrant is October 25th.
Okay, so we really should try to do this next week, but in a worst case scenario, 2 weeks, we need a solid number to fund this work.
And I think we can,
Yeah.
Nick, do you think that's realistic? I think we can do that.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, if one architectural engineer can't do it, there'll be somebody else that can do
Right.
it in that time frame.
Okay, so I think that's the plan. And just to clarify, we got a little bit perhaps sideways, but I was simply saying I don't want to spend, I prefer not to spend $200,000 on the architectural work. It was the only point I was making about the project within the project. You know, you hire an architect and sometimes they conflate the project to become as much as it costs to actually implement, and all you have is a study. So hopefully we can avoid that. Okay, anything further on schools? Are we?
That's it. Thank you very
No,
much
that's
for
it.
your
Thank you.
guidance and consideration and help.
Perfect. Look, we spent a lot of time on this, but one thing we didn't spend any time on, and I just want to cite it because I think it's self-evident, but I want to say it anyway. I think it's obvious to everybody on this call that this is an absolute need and a priority and something that is worth, spending whatever it takes to fix. And it's urgent enough that we should be addressing it as special town meeting. So it's just a question now of implementation. What is the next step? How do we get this moving? So I just, we didn't spend any time on that. I just wanted to be clear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for bringing it to us.
Thank you all. Okay, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And the generator.
Yes. So we are requesting funding for the public safety building generator. So the crux of it is I ended up finding a hazard mitigation grant a while ago, and between myself, Mike, and Glenn, we are going to apply for that grant, which it was supposed to be due in October sometime. Mike, was that correct?
It's now, yes, it's now down to December 5th.
Yeah, so now it's December. And that kind of puts us in a tighter deadline with special town meetings. So the thought is this generator was going to be asked for this year or at annual town meeting regardless. So it's replacing an extremely aging generator at the public safety building that is in precarious shape. So it was happening anyway. We found the grant, which is great. The grant covers 90% of the entire cost. So we'd only be on the hook for 10% when all is said and done. The problem is generators right now are roughly 50 weeks out. So if we order a generator in May, we're not getting it for close to a year. And that's the concern. So whether we are awarded this grant or not, we thought it prudent to ask now so that at least we can place the order and get the ball rolling with the thought that, in the hope that this grant will go through. And that is the long and short of it.
Okay, so is the request for the full 70K or is the request just for the 10% match? How are you thinking about it?
So that's the problem. At this point, the request is for the 70 because we don't know if we're going to get the grant or not.
Right.
So, we were going to be asking for this anyway. So,
In the spring, right?
yeah.
I'm not sure if I should be recusing myself since I've been working on this as a liaison with Cohasset Emergency Management.
No, you should not be recusing yourself on it.
Okay.
That actually makes you the resident expert.
Yeah. What I've learned over time is that this is a federal grant program administered by Massachusetts, their emergency management authority. We, meaning Cohasset Emergency Management Authority, has been urged, encouraged, beaten about the head and shoulders to get in this grant application. They feel that this is something that MEMA wants to support. So they just say, get your goddamn application in. So that's what we're doing.
Public meeting, Michael.
Yeah.
Public meeting.
Well, calling a spade, but in speaking with MEMA, and MEMA has been really helpful to us in shepherding us through the grant application process. They've done our cost benefit analysis, which is no easy task, but they're really familiar with the process and what sells and what doesn't on the grant application. So I feel that we're moving in the right direction, and that we have a good chance of getting this 90% reimbursement. But I completely support Nick's approach that, hey, let's get this generator in. And perhaps we should just take a minute to say, this generator will support police and fire during a total power failure. So we get hit with a nor'easter and our 2 feeder lines both go down, as happened a few years ago. Our police and fire will be able to function, and that's their full shifts.
Yeah, correct. And,
Yeah.
and at the current moment, the generator that is there cannot do 100% of the building.
Right,
So
right.
this is an increase in capacity. It's also meeting a push for emergency buildings to be powered by diesel generators and not natural gas,
Yep,
because that's the direction they're going. You are not supposed to have an interruptible source of fuel, and natural gas is considered that now. So it meets a lot of
And-
needs.
So let me just probe one issue. I understand the interruptible nature of natural gas. Are there dual fuel, propane, natural gas generators that we could look at and get around the interruptible that way? Or is the risk of explosion with a propane tank on site, not something we want to deal with?
I actually think the bigger issue with that is the refueling process. Right now, so we invested in a diesel transfer tank for one of the facilities vehicles.
Okay,
And now we can transfer large amounts of diesel when needed. We would need to outsource propane, and in the middle of a nor'easter, we
yeah,
were having trouble getting somebody to deliver diesel during the last one. So
but we
that's
were
why-
able to go get it ourselves.
Yeah, so
Okay,
this is something, as long as our DPW is up and running, because there are other critical infrastructure, we have access to the fuel.
okay.
Self-sustainable at that point.
So,
we also looked at battery, looking at it from the Alternative Energy Committee work that was done. But the feeling is the microgrid is not going to fly, and so that whole idea of battery is off the table. So really, the only other 2 alternatives were to use trailer generators as we do now, or to run feeder from the sewer, from the wastewater treatment plant, both of which are not really a practical solution. But in our grant application, we have to provide the state with those alternatives to show that we've thought about it.
right. Okay, so one question that came up, Nick, and I had an opportunity to speak with Ralph about the generators, because he was, not able to join tonight. He has a very strong concern that we're not test running our diesel generators often enough to keep them from waxing up fundamentally.
So he's referring to the DPW generator in specifics, I can guarantee.
Possibly, I think he was actually referring to the senior center one as the example, but it may be
Yeah.
it may be up at the DPW as well. My understanding, and this is just, again, this is me hearing Ralph and me trying to, replay it. Apparently diesel's full of all types of waxes and stuff like that. The fuel is, and, you need to run these generators often enough and long enough so that wax doesn't, build up in bad places and cause them to break down.
Correct. And it's definitely more important in the older diesel generators as opposed to the new ones.
Okay,
And yes, so there is, the offness isn't an issue. All of our generators cycle once a week.
okay,
The length of runtime is the problem. They like to get hot to burn off all that
Right, right.
So that is probably the issue with the DPW one in specifics. But also keep in mind that generator is a 1998 install.
Right.
So it took this long for it to have said issue. That being
Even,
said,
even though it wasn't running long enough, it's
yeah.
5 years.
So, but
Okay.
it did open our eyes to that. And then the other side of it, these new diesel generators that we're putting in, they're tier 4, very almost annoyingly so high tech. The bigger concern with the newer ones is we have to add fuel additive to them because it can actually grow fungus in the tanks and all sorts of other stuff that are all in our purview. We have an excellent preventive maintenance contract with our generator company, and we're constantly looking at these. So
Okay, so it sounds like we had some issues, but we understand what they are and we've upped our game accordingly.
yeah,
Okay.
and luckily the issues that arose are on generators that are at an age that their useful life is generally over. So it's not like we're dealing with a shortened life per se.
Got it. So we didn't kill anything prematurely.
No.
Okay. I guess the question I have, it's more of a rhetorical question, is that this one obviously is not, an imminent crisis in the sense that it needs replaced like today, but we've got a long lead time. We've got a valid request. It's probably going to score very highly in an annual town meeting cycle, if it were to come in an annual town meeting cycle. But we're thinking about possibly pulling this forward to a special, which is, sort of bypassing that whole prioritization process. I'm literally scratching my head.
Well, let me address that.
Yeah.
Or Nick, unless you want to. As part of our application, we have to demonstrate that the town supports this
Yeah.
move. And so to have a special town meeting authorization goes a long way to say, yes, the town is putting 70,000 up front in hopes of getting the reimbursement. So I think that's why we're coming now
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
as
So,
all the other reasons.
so one angle is it positions us to actually receive a grant.
Yes,
Just thinking out loud. I mean, when I'm just, and again, I'm just reflecting on this. We've never done this before. So I'm just thinking out loud. In our prioritization structure and spreadsheet, the public safety requests do receive the highest ranking. So this would have fallen in bucket 1 almost regardless. In terms of prioritization, this isn't like, well, something more discretionary further down the list. Let's put it that way. So I can, just in this case, I just, me speaking out loud, I can get my head around this, but I think we just need to be prepared for the idea that, some mid-tier requests may start turning up as special, during the STM cycle in the future. When we start doing this, we need to be prepared to differentiate which ones, we're going to do and which ones we're not in STM.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think the main issue is the lead time, and that's the reasoning. And the generator in place currently, it works. It's okay, but
Yeah.
it's in a condition that could fail.
Yeah,
at
and
any
it's not
time.
it's not just a building generator, it's the first responder building generator. So, okay. Susan, you're reflecting deeply. Thoughts?
No, I'm listening and I'm nodding because I agree with you. I mean, we usually do go through that process of prioritizing and all of that, but I'm concerned about the lead time, and we all know that climate change is making it a little more difficult to to function and with our Mother Earth not behaving too well these days. So, the potentiality for significant storms are in our future.
Yeah,
And I think the risk of not having our public safety buildings able to respond is one we don't want to be in that position, taking that risk. So I think I'd be inclined to put sort of the prioritization that we normally do a little bit aside because of the lead time, as Nick said, is extremely long. And it seems like this should have already been addressed probably sooner. We tried to, keep it together with Band-Aids and whatever, but now it's getting to the point now where we just can't take that risk anymore.
okay. So let me play devil's advocate because I just want to make sure on process we're not creating a monster here. So we had a request that was similar in a lot of ways at the last annual town meeting, which was the Elder Affairs ban, right? Long lead time, potential grant out there. And we insisted that they go apply for the grant. Well, actually, in fairness, we appropriated the match, did we not, at some prior date?
I thought that another solution came.
Yeah,
Michelle, I don't remember
but
that.
I'm just going back. I think we appropriated the match. We
I
didn't.
think we did as well.
We did. So okay. So it's apples and oranges. It's different.
But then did a solution come to the table? A different solution, Michelle? The use of another vehicle or something like that?
So we were talking about the use of another vehicle, but their idea was to apply for the grant anyway, see if we could get it. I haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
It's been awarded. But I think this was the time frame. It was supposed to be September
Yeah,
time frame that we would hear. But we were working with the schools to see if we could repurpose that
Okay.
school bus
Right.
van.
So I'm just trying to reconcile this in my head. I mean, CE asked for the entire amount of money, right? We provided the grant, we provided the match and told them to go apply for the grant. We did not appropriate the full amount of money. And their argument was similar. It was a long lead time, right? The distinction I can make here or the distinction that's leaping to mind and what's causing at least me individually to lean towards this one as opposed to away is that, it is public safety. It's a different animal. But I'm just curious, Mike, Susan, we have to just be cognizant that we're, handling these processes with some degree of consistency.
Mhm.
Well, I agree, Brian, that the difference here is that it's public safety and it's hazard mitigation. And it's not getting people around town.
Right. I'm comfortable with our distinction on this one.
Okay.
Do we need to deliberate this one any further, or do you guys feel ready to move it?
I'm ready.
All righty.
Okay. I guess I'm prepared to hear a motion.
Well, I'll move that capital budget recommend $70,000 to purchase a trying to think of the best way to describe the generator. Standby generator, purchase a standby generator for the public safety building to protect both fire and police departments in the event of a power failure in Cohasset. We can also say that capital budget is encouraged by the town applying for a federal hazard mitigation grant administered by the Commonwealth. And encourages facilities to pursue that application.
Does anyone have an issue making it a requirement? The
Huh?
application, not the winning of the grant, but
Right, but the application, yes,
grant.
I think that's fair.
I think that's one way to ensure that we're treating the process consistently.
So do I need to redraft this?
Just the second clause, just simply say that, that facilities and first responders, will apply for the grant, will apply for the MEMA grant.
Okay. Did you get that, Susan, or do you want me to write something up?
I actually did not write that down.
Okay, so let me, so move that capital budget committee recommends the spending of 70,000 for a standby generator to support the Cohasset Public Safety Building. What's the address there? Nick, do you know offhand? Is it 71 Elm,
62 Elm?
Yeah, I think it's 62.
62 Elm Street? Capital budget. Requires or recommends that the town of Cohasset Facilities Department complete the grant, that the federal hazard mitigation grant sub-application, which is what it's called, to obtain 90% reimbursement if awarded.
Sounds fine.
I can text this over to you, Susan, if you want. So I'll read it back. Moved that Capital Budget Committee recommends the spending of 70,000 for a standby generator to support the Cohasset Public Safety Building, 72 Elm Street. Capital Budget recommends that the town of Cohasset Facilities Department complete the federal hazard mitigation grant sub-application to obtain 90% reimbursement if the grant is awarded to Cohasset. That cover it?
Sounded fine to me. Susan, do we have a second by chance?
Second,
All right, all in favor? Let's do a roll call vote. Susan Franklin,
aye.
Michael,
Susan Franklin, aye.
Mike Dick, aye.
Brian Host, aye. All right, I think that's it for tonight. So for next Thursday, we've got Chief Quigley's video system.
Mhm.
Hopefully we've got an idea what the school architectural engineering study will cost. And then we've got CPC, the library project being funded by CPC,
I have one more to add,
which is,
maybe two. One would be one would be the electric vehicles.
yeah,
Those leases expire in December, and we would love to purchase them.
okay. And how much is that?
You
I
had
think it was
asked me that.
42.
I think it's
42,000?
42,000. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
That's for all the vehicles?
Yep, all three of them.
How old are they at this point?
3 years,
3 years old. Okay.
and they all have less than 20,000 miles on them.
Okay. So you're looking at 13 grand, 14 grand each.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. What's the other one?
Well, the other one may be more of a CPC request. It's really
Okay.
just playground, maybe playground equipment, and or upgrades. Nick's working on it now. We don't really have much to report tonight. And I don't think there's been a decision made whether or not it's capital yet. We don't have actual costs, but something I just
Yeah.
want to put on your radar.
Okay. Okay, and to the extent, Michelle, that you talk to CPC or the library between now and next week, I think one of the key questions is going to be, why is this coming at STM as opposed to annual cycle? So that's definitely one question they should come prepared to answer.
Okay.
And then where the funding is coming from.
Yep.
And that would be true of all of the different requests.
Yeah.
Sure.
So one last question for me, and Michelle, do we have any idea at this point what if any appropriation will be coming out of free cash to the capital stabilization fund at this point, or is it too early?
I think it's too soon to tell. We'll have a better idea next week, I think.
Okay. The issue here is that we spent the fund down to a flat million at the end of last year, and typically we don't do capital STM. Typically we actually get an inflow of free cash into the stabilization fund. So we start the annual cycle with more than $1 million flat. So absent an appropriation coming in, we're actually spending at this point and appropriating at this point below or out of the $1 million that we have and below our target threshold of $1 million. So I think we just need to keep an eye on that very closely. I guess at this point we're about 85 in. So
Okay.
anything else from anyone at all? Okay.
Oh, yes, I just, out of curiosity, Michelle, I know that our new finance director started Monday. Just, you want to give us your take on her and her situation in trying to
Sure.
come up to speed and all that?
Yeah. So Jennifer comes from Falmouth. I believe she was there for over 10 years. She's wonderful. She has a lot of experience, not only on the accounting side, but also on the project management side, procurement and grants as well. So she's a wealth of knowledge for us, and she's done a lot of these long-term capital projects that we're embarking on. She has done in Falmouth. So it's great to hear her wisdom and how it all worked out. She's been feeding us with some documents that they have for the projects that they've done, which is very helpful. She was
Great.
in Monday. She had a chance to look at all of our finances. Unfortunately, she is now sick and will not be in until next week. So she has her laptop at home. She's continuing to look through our finances, and next week she's going to hit the ground running. And she's looking forward to meeting all of the different committees. So I'm sure she will reach out to Capital and get on the agenda so she can introduce herself and walk through some things with you.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
All right, so are we scheduling a meeting next Monday, next Thursday? What are we thinking?
So I think we were targeting next Wednesday or Thursday. Monday is a holiday.
Of course. Yep.
I'm pretty sure, didn't I see an invitation that went out for Wednesday, Michelle?
I said Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
Are there any joint meetings anticipated?
I would think at the October 28th meeting, it will likely be a joint capital select board meeting with advisory.
Okay, and that's to cover,
All of the recommendations for special town meeting for the warrant.
got it. Okay,
But as far as next week, if we're gonna meet on Wednesday, we'll have to post tomorrow.
Yep.
Because of the holiday. If we're gonna meet on Thursday, that's fine, and we can post on Tuesday.
I'm okay either. Michael, Susan,
I'm okay either way. So Thursday,
Yeah,
Thursday would be
Thursday's a little
okay.
better. Thursday's a little better for me, but
Yeah, let's do Thursday then.
Okay, and is the 7 o'clock time frame still a good time for everybody?
Yes.
I think it
Okay.
works fine. Michelle, have we heard from Ralph about next week?
I haven't heard from Ralph.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like everybody can do Wednesday or Thursday. Preference is Thursday. Let's maybe see Ralph's availability and hopefully he can join us. Maybe
Okay.
Francine as well. I know she's buried right now, but
Okay,
okay.
All right, well, excellent. Thank you so much.
I would
thank you.
thank you.
All right, have a good
be
night.
happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Anyone? Anyone?
Come on,
I
Susan.
make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Sec-
All in favor? Roll call vote. Susan Franklin,
Susan Franklin, I.
Michael
Mike
Dick,
Dick. Aye.
Brian Host, aye. The time is 8:30. Have a great night, folks.
All right,
All
good
right,
night.
thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.